Hello everybody and welcome to today's Sunday sermon, which is the 26th Sunday in the year. Today being the 25th of September. Today is also Remembrance Day for refugees and those who have no place to live. And it's very appropriate because today we have in our Gospel the parable story about the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man was very rich and described very well by Jesus because he wore purple. This was a dye, special dye, which only the rich people could wear. And he didn't need to work because he was so rich. And therefore he feasted every day. He enjoyed his life here on earth until the day he died. The parable just tells us that when he died, he was buried. But he ended up in Hades, which is a place of great torture and thirst and suffering forever and ever. What did he do to deserve such a punishment? He had not ordered Lazarus to be removed from his gate. He had made no objections to his receiving the bread that was flung away from his table. The sin of the rich man, otherwise often known as Dives, was that he never noticed Lazarus, that he accepted him as part of the landscape and simply thought it perfectly natural and inevitable that Lazarus should lie in pain and hunger while he wallowed in luxury. As someone said, it was not what Dives did that got him into death and jail. It was what he did not do that got him into hell. The sin of Dives was that he could look on the world's suffering and need and feel no answering sword of grief and pity pierce his heart. He looked at a fellow man hungry and in pain and did nothing about it. His was the punishment of the man who never noticed. He has enough riches to help Lazarus have a better life, but he never even noticed him. So his sin was he ignored or deliberately chose not to see Lazarus. And we wonder why Lazarus, the poor man at the gate of the rich man, and when he dies, he is taken straight to great joy and everlasting life in heaven. Why does he deserve that? In order to explain, if we go back to the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus said, "Blessed are you when you hunger and thirst, for you shall have your fill." It is important to note here that Jesus is not glorifying poverty, and we should never say or justify it. And it is so prevalent in our world today as well as in the time of Jesus. Because over 80% of the world's population live in abject poverty, meaning they have a severe lack of food, clothing, shelter, and education is something they cannot even dream about. They just survive. In the very life itself, when it comes to death, the only one to help us is God. So blessed are you when you resign yourself to this fact and put your trust and confidence in God alone. Then you are blessed. and you shall be satisfied. So Lazarus obviously reached that stage in his life because he ended up at the side of Abraham, which was the Bible's way of saying nearest to God's bosom. So today's reading of this parable should instill in us a sense of helping and doing our best to make this world a better place for everyone. If we have an abundance in our lives, we ought to give a good account of how we have used it, because we'll be asked, how did you use the possessions and the riches you had? This is an embarrassing question maybe, but one that we should be aware of now. We will be asked if we do have, and all of us have something which we can share with others. And in fact, it is so obvious among the poor, they will share much more easily than those who have a lot. Have we experienced the pain and compassion that we ought to feel when we see the pain and misfortune of others who are less better off than ourselves? We try to reach out and help from the abundance we have, namely riches in both money and possessions, but also in the peace and joy and happiness that we have. If we keep it to ourselves, then it has gone for nothing. Love isn't love until you give it away. And then all of us, rich and poor alike, living in this world, either in a state of poverty or living luxuriously, need to cultivate a sense of dependence on God alone. We have many blessings if we could only count them. These blessings can be our children who are good, and we are living a healthy and strong life, free of sickness so far. Be aware that it is only by God's grace that's allowing this to happen to us in our lives. We are not the ones who have made this happen. So as Lazarus obviously did, we put everything in its proper perspective. We owe everything to God. We put our trust in Him alone. As the rich man should have done, we look for those who need our help. Let's nurture bleeding hearts for the misfortunates of this world. We need to ask ourselves what we have done lately to provide food, clothing, shelter, and human kindness to the Lazarus in our midst. J. Forbes wrote, "Nobody gets into heaven without a letter of reference from the poor." Father George Bobowski of the Divine Mercy wrote, "You cannot buy heaven with what you have. You can buy heaven with what you give." Today is World Day of Migrants and Refugees. Very appropriate, I think, that we have this reading today of the rich man and Lazarus. The theme for today is building the future with migrants and refugees. Pope Francis highlights the commitment that we all are called to share in building a future that embraces God's plan, leaving no one behind. And the prayer of today, which is written especially for migrants and refugees. Lord, make us builders of your kingdom, together with migrants and refugees, and with all who dwell on the peripheries. Let us learn how beautiful it is to live together as sisters and brothers. May God bless you, Have a beautiful Sunday and a grace-filled week ahead.